A long time ago, a studio far, far away, two nerds decided for May they would cover Star Wars. Welcome to Movie Reel, folks. I'm Kevin Tracy.
And I'm Samantha Tomlinson.
And that's right, you heard it from that handsome narrator that we are covering Star Wars.
It is Star Wars month. Yay! And
woo, we finally made it.
Happy May 4th, everybody.
Yay, happy May 4th. And to all my Star Wars fans, I'm so sorry.
Wait, why?
Because on May 4th, we are going to be getting the last episode of Star Wars The Clone Wars. Currently, there are 2 episodes left as of us recording this. Last episode that came out, The Phantom Apprentice, is currently the 4th highest rated TV show episode ever on IMDb, with a 9.9 out of 10.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, shit's getting real on that show.
I just watched the one where... So, was it Ventress, the assassin?
Yeah, Dooku's assassin, yeah.
And okay, I should have known that the captain was a bad guy because of his hair. I almost sent you a picture. What is going on with this guy's hair?
Oh, you got to the new Gunray up. You're still in season 1, right?
Or I just watched the one where they track it and they're Grievous's lair.
Okay, with Kit Fisto and his apprentice Nadar.
Is that one of those episodes where you were saying that I wouldn't need to watch?
Yeah, honestly, season 1 it's good, but compared to the rest of it, it's
it gets a lot better.
Oh, it gets leaps and bounds better.
Because it's not bad. It's just
it's just
a ton of stuff I don't really care about. It's like all these people that I don't know, and I will say I do like that it's not. It's kind of interesting that it's looking at all sides of what's happening. It's not just simply following Anakin and Obi-Wan and Ahsoka Tano. Like, it's kind of going all over the place. But, which I think is an interesting move. But yeah, the problem is that there's all of these characters that I'm like, I don't really know who you are. And
as it gets on, a lot of the characters get a lot more fleshed out, especially the clones, which I really liked about that is... Even though they're all clones of the same person, they all have widely unique and interesting personalities. Like not one clone is the same that pretty much like has any meaningful dialogue or importance to the story. Yeah, like Fives, Rex, and Cody, they're all 3 widely different characters, and I absolutely love that.
I realize I hate R3. The way I hate Hans of the Southern Isles. From Frozen.
That's Goldie, right?
That devious, backstabbing little bastard. Well, because at the first I'm like, oh, he's just maybe not as good as R2, and of course Anakin doesn't want to use any droid other than R2, and then he's a traitor. And I was literally like the scene where R3 is about to go over the edge and uses his like rope grabber thing and grabs onto R2, and I was like, holy crap, is he want R2 to help him, or is he thinking, oh, if I die I'm gonna take R2 with me? I'm like,
Scar, brother, help me.
Yeah, I know. I was like, oh my god, what are the droids, the Roger ones called?
Oh, the battle droids.
They're just they're so annoying.
They're snarky. They're snarky. I actually kind of like the B1 battle droids because they in the movies they really didn't get like any like personality. They were just like, all right, we're a CGI robot. We're gonna try to kill everyone.
They're entertaining. They're just like, the stupid kind of mind. I mean, they're droids.
To be fair, they do kind of get like a more menacing upgrade later on, especially with like the B2 battle droids and the commando droids, which I think you've seen the commando droids. Those are the ones that like just straight up like kill the clones and like wear their armor and impersonate them like almost flawlessly. It's like, shit, these guys are menacing.
Damn.
while we're still on Clone Wars, what is your like impression of Ahsoka? Because you've never really seen her before watching this, or really knew much about her other than she was Anakin's apprentice.
I like her. I think she's badass. And what would you say was the target audience for this? Was it kids or just specifically any Star Wars fan?
I feel like it was originally targeted as kids, and then as the show progressed, the show increasingly got more and more mature and dealt with a lot more mature themes
Because
like
Ahsoka is
bioterrorism and
whoa,
genocide, and like there are some
classic Anakin.
there are some really like messed up story arcs. Like there's literally the most dangerous game in this.
Oh damn. Because Ahsoka in the beginning, she's just a little too innocent and like it's like she was catered for kids a little
Yeah,
too
I mean,
much.
like I said in the beginning, the first like couple seasons are a lot more focused towards kids, and as it goes on, it gets a bit more and more mature.
They realized that wasn't their audience.
Yeah, because originally when it came out, I didn't really like Ahsoka because it's like, oh, why are they changing so much? Like this wasn't like part of like the lore. Like he didn't have an apprentice. And to be fair, this was like way before like Disney like retconned everything.
Mm-hmm.
So like the only like idea of like no, like Anakin never had an apprentice. Like Darth Vader had like a secret apprentice. And it's like he was going to use him to like overthrow the Empire,
He
and it
did?
was just it kind of yeah. I mean that has been like long since like retconned. That was the premise of the Force Unleashed, which was a video game series where Darth Vader, like after like the Empire like is like pretty much a thing, he found this like young like a Jedi youngling and trained him to be like his like apprentice, his secret apprentice, and he called him Star Killer, which fun fact, that was the original working title for Luke's last name. He was going to be Luke Star Killer,
That's a little
but they
too on the
felt
nose.
yeah, and also it's like
Skywalker's
wait,
way better.
also that's way too menacing for the good guy's name.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, he was just called Star Killer, and he was sent on missions to track down surviving Jedi and kill them. And him and Darth Vader were going to overthrow and kill the Emperor, like take the Empire for themselves. Except the Emperor found out about it and ordered Vader to kill him, and then it was just kind of like a revenge story after that.
Okay.
It was a pretty solid story. Unfortunately, it did get retconned, but the voice actor and like I think he also did like a bunch of the motion capture. Sam, drawing a blank. It's like Sam Whitaker, or not Whitaker. Drawing a blank on his name, but basically he is still a part of Star Wars. He is the voice actor for Darth Maul in the Clone Wars.
Okay.
And he also is the voice actor for another character who I kind of don't want to get into because that's actually like a really significant character.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Fun stuff.
Yeah.
If you haven't noticed, folks, I really like Star Wars.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. What was the one like random joke just like, "Hey, are you guys talking about Star Wars?" Yeah.
That was the joke. Like that of was it Warp Zone?
Yeah, a YouTube channel is just them doing a skit of like
George
the
Lucas,
JJ Abrams team just like yeah, George Lucas like, "Hey," like walking into like the writers room as they're like working on like
the next what's going to be the next after Force Awakens. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, "Hey, you guys talking about Star Wars?" And one of the writers is just like so excited, it's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Can I join?" It's like, "Sure."
Yeah, I just remember Aaron showed us that, and he's like, "That's all of us." That's
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%.
So what? Let's get into it.
We are starting with my absolute favorite Star Wars movie, Episode 4: A New Hope, which came out in 1977.
Oh, this one's your favorite?
This one is my absolute favorite, especially of the original trilogy, and just as a series as a whole, this one's my favorite.
Yeah, this one I went back and forth for a while. I think I expected Empire Strikes Back to be my favorite, but then at the time it was, for a while it was Return of the Jedi, but now, and then it was, no, I think it's A New Hope, and now I don't know. I go back and forth between them, which it's one of those two for sure.
Yeah, I get you. But yeah, no, this one was always had a soft spot for me. I mean, I grew up watching a lot of like, George Lucas and Steven Spielberg movies, like
Yes.
Star Wars and Indiana Jones and
Mm-hmm.
Jurassic Park. And Jurassic Park is by far like my all-time favorite movie.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll cover that later on. But for now, we'll stick. Hopefully, but for now,
Yeah.
we'll stick with Star Wars. But yeah, no, this one I've always had a soft spot specifically for this movie, and as I kind of like rewatched it, I feel like the main reason I liked this one is because of the music. Like John Williams,
Oh
who's the
yeah.
composer for pretty much all these movies, for like all the movies I just said, like Indiana Jones,
Yeah.
Jurassic Park, this, he did such a phenomenal job.
Oh
Just
yeah.
creating the music and the overall tone and atmosphere for these movies is simply breathtaking. I can't even really come into words of how to describe how magical he makes the movie feel just from the music alone.
Binary Sunset is one of the most. It's definitely one of his most gorgeous pieces of writing. It's definitely, I think, the most beautiful piece of score in Star Wars. Like that's
100% agree with you.
That might be, I don't know, that might be my favorite part. It's definitely my absolute favorite piece of music. I don't know, when it comes to John Williams, it's hard to have a favorite. I mean, not it's hard, but
Yeah,
I don't even.
No, because literally everything he did just became an instant classic.
We should just do a John Williams time where we just sit and talk. We just talk about John Williams.
Yeah, I mean,
Williams.
from this to the Indiana Jones theme to
Jurassic theme, Jurassic Park theme, like Harry Potter. Yeah. I didn't even realize that he was. I knew he was in Harry Potter. I didn't realize he did Prisoner of Azkaban because it doesn't even sound like him.
Yeah, he also did. I think the main one that I know he did was it was called Hedwig's theme for Sorcerer's Stone, and I think that's the initial theme
Hedwig's
when he
theme.
first. Yeah, and I think that's the initial theme that we hear when Harry, Ron, and like all of them are like arriving at Hogwarts for the first time.
Or I think that there's Harry's Wondrous World, and then there's Hedwig's theme. Those are the. I mean, he did all of those. Are the two. Yeah, and
those are the two main ones I'm aware of.
Yeah. Those are the two most famous.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's. I mean, not even just John Williams. This whole endeavor is like when people say Star Wars changed cinema. It changed it. It just changed it in every single possible way. Not just, oh, it's a story. I mean, they've had stories set in space. Mark Hamill. It's a really funny interview. He was on Seth Meyers' The Wild. I think this was way before even Rise of Skywalker came out, and he was saying when he first read the script, he's like, this is more like Wizard of Oz compared to other science fiction. Like 2001, he's like, because he said how a 2001 Space Odyssey, he's like, it's a stone cold classic. A laugh riot, it ain't. Like, it's not even just the themes and the general story, but as well as like Princess Leia completely changed the norms of what a princess is, as well as in terms of characters. But also, we have all these minor characters that they don't even do much, but they're so beloved, like Boba Fett, or
hey, no, he's not a minor character.
No, but I mean, he's not part of the main cast, and he's not like he doesn't work with. He's not the Emperor or Darth Vader. He's just a third party. Like
I still feel like he's a principal antagonist.
No, he's an antagonist, but I wouldn't say he's not a major. Like you see him briefly in A New Hope. You're more aware of him in Empire Strikes Back. I mean, he's not one of the principal main characters. He's a third party. He's a third party antagonist. that they have to deal with.
Yeah.
But anyway,
but no, I 100% agree with you that this did kind of change how we kind of see fantasy movies, because especially in like the 70s, a lot of like sword and sword. This is what it honestly feels like. Is like it when you kind of read the description, it just kind of sounds like a sword and sorcery type movie set in space. So
and it
you're expecting
is
like
in a sense,
it's
it is.
yeah, because it's space wizards and a farm boy learning from an old wizard to stop a an evil emperor, to
Yeah,
save a princess with some rough scoundrels and that they find in a bar. Like that's
yeah.
literally this hits every beat of like a normal like classic like sword and sorcery type fantasy movie. And just based off of like that formula alone, there are so many of those types of movies that just kind of slip under the radar and are just fall into obscurity. And yet this movie kind of flips all of those stereotypes on their head to make them just kind of make it its own, to make it a more enjoyable experience. Like how you were saying, Princess Leia kind of changed the norms of like how a princess is portrayed in movies. Like normally, like princesses and like other female characters and stuff like this, they're just
Yeah.
kind of like it's like, oh, she's a princess, so she can't really like do any fighting or anything
Oh, and yeah,
like
and they
physically substantial. Yeah,
a little while back, I became a contributing writer for this as an app called 4B. I recommend people check it out. It's basically it's kind of like two opposing viewpoints, and then they hire writers to take one stance, take the other stance, and then people vote. The first one was which is better, Star Wars or Star Trek? And I honestly, at first, I didn't even want to do it because I haven't seen Star Trek and I didn't feel comfortable automatically siding with one when I haven't even seen the other.
seeing the other.
But
Yeah,
I also was like, I mean, it's kind of, I did it anyway, but I was saying, but it's, I talked about Leia, how she like, the second she's able to, she fights. Locked in a room when there's not really a she can't pick the lock. There's not a way to escape. The second she gets out and she sees, oh well, these guys aren't able to, so whatever. She grabs a gun and like just she's not just
the damsel in distress.
no, like she's just fuck that. Like she's the second
Yeah,
she's a I mean, she is born to be a general, which I think that was
exactly.
really that I thought that was awesome. I will say what they did for Force Awakens, but I mean,
Yeah,
not even so. Aside from even the characters, like the endeavor of making this movie was they had to. So George Lucas had to create scale models of everything. They had to get really, really creative with the camera to
yeah.
pull this off.
Yeah, the behind the scenes of this movie is fascinating, because a lot of the stuff that they did were they would put matte paintings for a lot of the landscapes, like when you see um Obi-Wan, R2, and Luke just like hang out on like the side of the cliff, and they're looking down and they see Mos Eisley. They're just looking at a matte painting, and the matte painting is like covering the screen of the camera,
It
and
is.
they just
I
kind of
didn't know that.
well, there were several times. I mean, it may not be like that specifically, but
Yeah.
one specific instance of that is in Return of the Jedi. I know we're jumping ahead, but in Return of the Jedi, when the Emperor shows up in the hangar and there's like hundreds of stormtroopers just like lined up in formation to like welcome his entrance. There's only about like 5 stormtroopers there, and the rest of them are just matte paintings, and they just matched up the painting on to the frame of the camera to match the scale of the actual actors in that set.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
So the actual production that had never been done before, and then when it came out, and also we suddenly merchandising was never a big a deal for films. Star Wars changed that.
yeah,
Audiences were lining up and seeing it again and again in theaters. It's just every single step of the filmmaking process from development to release was just never before seen. This isn't something just like, oh, it's this cool movie that came out. No, it completely changed the landscape of cinema forever.
It really did.
It
yeah.
did. Like, and we have to talk about Ben Burt, the guy who changed audio design, also changed Shocker forever. Because I mean, there was the sound, there was the sound guys, there was John Williams, but Ben Burt had to create sounds that didn't exist.
Yeah,
Lightsabers
and
and
the blaster
droids.
effects.
And he also worked for Indiana Jones, and for that, like for the rolling boulder, he just pushed a car down a gravel steep, like a hill or something,
Yeah, just
to
a
get that
gravel
sound
road.
effect.
Yeah, I do remember that, and he just kind of like did that in like a spur of the moment. It's like, man, I really need to get something rolling downhill. It's like, this gravel's making a lot of noise, and I got my audio equipment in the car. Let's roll down the windows, put this thing in neutral, and roll this thing down a hill. See what kind of sound that makes, and voila, that's how we get the boulder.
Sound design is very, very, like, it doesn't get the respect that it
Yeah,
deserves.
it.
It's very hard. Did you ever get to take the audio class?
I did take the directing class, and we did focus a sizable section of that class just talking and working about Foley artists, and
Yeah.
I have so much respect for all the random sounds that you hear in movies, because someone had to figure out what that sound would sound like and just make a exaggerated version of that sound. Like, we watched an entire documentary on just the art of Foley artists, that like a lot of that was focused primarily on like old rubber hose style animation from like Disney.
Yeah.
Because like all of those had a sound effect as well, like a drawbridge falling down, like you would have that really loud thunk as it hit the ground, and the rattling of the chains. They actually had to have like a winch with a chain that they would just crank up to simulate the sound of, like, the chains rattling and all the gears grinding to lower
Yeah.
that drawbridge, and just throw like this heavy like wood plank, like this really like thick wood plank on the ground, to make that loud thunk noise of the drawbridge coming down. And they kind of just did similar stuff to that for this movie, but they had to invent a lot of new sounds, because lightsabers, that wasn't a thing before this. Like,
Yo,
no one
no.
really had like laser swords. So this kind of changed how Foley artists kind of worked, because they had to work in a more controlled environment to just synthesize all these unique sounds. And now I think there's just like a library of all these sounds that I think it's free for people to use, or it used to be for free. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
since Disney took over, but
Yeah.
LucasArts had like this entire library and catalog that was, for a time, free for anyone to use for any movies or video projects. I don't know if that is still currently the case, but it was such an extensive library, and such a fantastic and great resource for upcoming filmmakers to just kind of uh, pick and choose from, to give their movie or video a unique sound.
Yeah. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. So that's funny. I took because when I took directing, I took it with cinematography. That was more of a discussion than audio. I had to take an audio class, and I took it alongside with media aesthetics. And walking out of both that semester, I remember I had such a deep. I mean, I of course had a respect for film, but I never really. This was the other side of it. This was a different side of it that I hadn't really I hadn't peeked behind that curtain. So I remember I walked out of that year just like, oh my god, like having such a newfound deep respect for the people that deal with audio and deal with production. And it's an endeavor that it's kind of hard that I think most people don't understand. Like, it's not like any other I kind of explain it. I would kind of say it like the whole filmmaking process is like an assembly line. In a sense, everybody's got to do their part, and if you one person messes up, it's kind of the domino effect. There's a good chance the whole thing is just going to fall apart, or it's not going to be a very good end result. But yeah, audio, I remember it was it was cool to be like, oh, I recorded that sound, or I did this and I put it together. But it also, that class gave me a heart attack, like almost every single class. And our friend Andrew can vouch for this. Like every single day, I like mentally deteriorated.
Yeah, because this was around the time where you were just spending like 10-hour days just on campus.
No. This was before then.
Oh, right.
This was before then. Yes, I did. I had days I would be on campus for like 10. One day I was there for like 13 hours. I had to get to I had class at 9 and I didn't leave until school until maybe 10 at night. Yeah. But I didn't really I got so used to it, and it wasn't like I was enjoying everything I was doing, so it wasn't like a struggle, you know. But anyway, so let's get more into the actual movie. So yeah, this came out in 1977.
Yeah.
Do we know what? Sorry, I'm going to look up the actual date.
May 25th, 1977 was its. Yeah.
Okay, and so it was originally just called Star Wars. It was not. Was it always like in the title credits A New Hope, but not Episode 4?
Yeah, I think that eventually changed when Empire Strikes Back came out, because like, wait, episode 5, what did he mean? Like, was episode 4? Like, it kind of confused the audience, especially when like all 3 of them came out. It's like 4, 5, 6. Well, wait, where's 1, 2, 3? It kind of confused audiences, and there's a really interesting theory that kind of coincides with a deal that Lucas unfortunately made with Kenner, a toy line company that basically like made 80% of the Star Wars merchandise. That it kind of like may or may not explain why the prequel trilogy came out as late as it did, because that didn't come out until 1999 and didn't finish until 2005. So there was a large gap between episode 6 and 1.
Yeah.
And the reason behind that is when these movies came out, the original trilogy came out, George Lucas created a deal with the Kenner Toy Company that for some reason he somehow set up the deal that they would get the majority of the profits for the toy line would go to Kenner rather than himself, when he set up a deal with like the actual movie company that he would get a lot of the profits instead of like a initial paycheck from making the movies. He would get a percentage of the merchandising rights, which at the time was kind of unheard of because movies that kind of focused on that didn't make that much. As we all know, Star Wars completely changed that. So when he did the deal with Kenner, he somehow shot himself in the own foot and gave them a majority of the rights to merchandising. So that meant that he wasn't getting as much as he would have initially intended if he had picked one deal or the other. So when episode 6 came out and stopped making movies for a significant amount of time, and Kenner eventually was running out of Star Wars toys ideas because they could only make as many toys as there were movies.
Right.
Their license eventually expired, and George Lucas capitalized on that and then reinitialized that deal with Hasbro and made sure that he would get the majority of the merchandising rights. And then coincidentally, the production for Phantom Menace was already underway.
Oh boy.
So I don't know if that was the initial reason why he decided to wait so long to make them, but the coincidence is very obvious once you kind of look at it that way.
I just thought he just couldn't take that endeavor until he told the tale of Howard the Duck.
Yeah.
I always thought it was that. George Lucas is an interesting person. So watching A New Hope, he wrote the original Star Wars, and he wrote the prequels, and he obviously gets credited as for the story for the rest, but he only actually wrote the original Star Wars and the prequels. Would you? Okay, it's okay if you don't. I've just the idea I've been toying with. Would you agree he is a better filmmaker and maybe director than he is a writer?
Um, I would say that he is a better director than writer, although I do have to say that with him writing all of the prequels and all of the original trilogy, that he had a very clear vision that he was able to see into fruition and was able to see the light of day from beginning to end. There was a very clear
Yeah.
beginning, middle, and end, and there wasn't a lot muddled up in between because of multiple creative differences. That the sequels trilogy, in my opinion, had, because that had like 3 or 4 different directors over the course of 5 years. Like it kind of, I felt like the sequel trilogy kind of just became a mess over time. Whereas the prequels, I mean, they may not be held in as high regard as the original trilogy, but he had a clear vision, and
Yes.
he was able to connect those stories with his original works, and I very much respect him for being able to do that, even though a lot of the dialogue and the characters didn't make any sense,
Okay.
or
Yeah.
just didn't really connect to the audience as much as they could have.
I agree. I agree because, I mean, we won't get completely into it. Yeah, I think in terms of the sequels, Rise of Skywalker, it was according to critics and like reviews, it was the worst one. Yet I feel like audiences kind of agree it was also the best one because it was the most entertaining. But yeah, it was very disappointingly clear that they didn't really have a cohesive story, which I don't understand why. It doesn't make sense why they didn't plan that out. George
Yeah.
Lucas, he for the prequels, yeah, he knew he was going to do a trilogy unless told otherwise. I don't think he for the original Star Wars. I don't there wasn't was there a trilogy planned? He didn't think the
Um.
first one was going to even be a success. He didn't even go to the
Yeah.
premiere. He went to Hawaii with Steven Spielberg, and they came up with the plot of Raiders.
Yeah. And then when they came back, it's like, wait, this is still in theaters, and people were waiting around the block to see it. Um,
Which gotta
yeah.
say, how much that would suck that he spent all that time and devotion to creating something
Yeah.
that he thought was going to be bad. But anyway, I feel
Well,
like
when he originally showed off like a lot of the like the test footage to a lot of like filmmakers and producers to kind of like gauge their reaction to see if this was any good,
right.
Steven Spielberg was the only one there who really had his back, because,
Mm-hmm.
well, when he originally showed them, it was a lot of unshot special effects that had yet to be filmed or inserted into the film. So he was kind of just showing them an incomplete
Mm-hmm.
movie that it's like, oh, just use your imagination. Like, this is like he's holding a laser sword. Like, why is he holding a fluorescent like silver tube? It's like, no, it's a laser sword. It's called a lightsaber.
Yeah, that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he basically just showed them a version of the movie that just didn't have any of the special effects in it, um, and they just trashed that movie.
Which
Except
makes
Steven Spielberg.
sense.
I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense, but I mean,
Yeah.
like he was showing them a work in progress movie,
Yeah.
so it's like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, but like yeah, Steven Spielberg was really like the only one who like had his back from like the very beginning. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and like that's like a solid friendship, and that kind of carries over into the Indiana Jones movies, which great trilogy.
I just love how for the fourth Indiana Jones, Spielberg basically just kind of abandoned ship and said, "Yeah, kind of let George Lucas kind of ran with that one." So like he just like just kind of yeah, no, it was him, and he just like runs away. Like I just thought that was hilarious that he that he just abandoned ship. But I think I was rewatching A New Hope. So Mark Hamill said that he casts people that's so close to what he wants that he doesn't have to give them a ton of direction. Which, because I know Carrie Fisher obviously had a ton of influence for Leia, and and I mean Harrison Ford is I'd say he's kind of a blend of Indiana Jones and Han Solo. Like he is cool
He's very
and
much like kind of like a rugged kind of plays by his own rules, like swashbuckler type.
yeah,
He's very much like
exactly.
he's very much kind of like a rogue type character of just like, all right, I'm gonna do what needs to be done. It may not be ethically clean, but it's gonna get done for a morally good purpose. Like he's gonna get it done. It's just gonna get done in a somewhat sketchy way.
Yes. Yeah,
Which I kind of
exactly.
like that. I kind of like that in terms of like the dynamic of like the core cast is like, yeah, we're gonna do the right thing. It's just not
Intent
all of us are gonna be as squeaky clean as the rest. Like
that
he
that
has no like remorse when it comes to like, oh, there's a there's a bounty hunter trying to kill me. Boom, shot him. He's dead.
that's why I love that's when I remember when I watched Solo, I realized kind of his like girlfriend love interest in that movie. I realized
Yeah,
it was very clear why Leia is perfect for him because she has that same like fighter that he does, but she's got that, but she's more of an opposite of him, more the opposite of
yeah,
him. She wants to, she they both want to do the right thing, whereas she wants to do it ethically and you know no regrets, no remorse. Where he just wants it to be done with, no matter the means. Where and she,
yeah.
I mean they it's I'm trying to they both just they have they're similar in the right ways and opposite in the good ways that kind of
Yeah,
contrast to each other.
yeah, because Leia, she's always been portrayed as a leader. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like even when before she even like really had like any official capacity in the rebellion in terms of like upper leadership, like before like Alderaan blew up. Spoiler if you haven't seen it.
Yeah.
Yeah, even before that, like she was just like always just kind of been a VIP in like the upper echelons of the rebellion hierarchy. Um, Whereas Han Solo kind of accidentally and very reluctantly was dragged into a leadership position, especially after the events of the New Hope. Like after that, he was like immediately like not immediately, but like over the course of time, he was promoted to general alongside Leia, and Luke was a commander.
Yeah, and then
So yeah,
it also kind of shows because in the yeah in the beginning he doesn't he's in this he's supposed to get paid and then he says I'm in this for the money, but then he obviously stays around and he helps Luke and they destroy the Death Star. But
yeah,
then in Empire Strikes Back, Luke hasn't come back yet. He goes out and gets him. He goes out to find
yeah,
his friend. Like his own personal not I didn't say code, but he always kind of looked out for himself, and that changed when he not even just the cause, but he realized there's people in his life that he's not gonna just let them go like
yeah.
he would have in the past.
Yeah, because the only real like friendship he had was like the only things that he really cared about was like the Millennium Falcon,
And
his money, and
Chewie,
Chewbacca. Yeah, I'm not gonna not include Chewie. He's no.
I love Chewie.
I,
I love
I
Chewie
know,
so
but
much.
the the one thing that I was like really worried about was when watching the sequel trilogy, and it's like, oh, like Han Solo died, and like, oh, Leia's gonna die, and Luke died. It's like, son of a bitch, if they kill Chewie, there's gonna be
Well,
a riot.
sorry, a little bit of spoiler. When in that scene where we think Chewie's dead, for a split second, I felt really bad because I didn't want him to die, but you know when as like an audience member you want something to happen and as you
Yeah,
don't want characters to die, but at the same time you can't help but like a part of you wants the character to die because you want to see what's going to happen and that reaction. And
yeah.
so I felt like a monster for thinking that at the time.
I know, but it
But
was like at that point in the movie, it's just like nothing's really happened in this
and
movie, and this is the only interesting thing. And for them to kill Chewbacca in that way, it's like
and that
that's really
was
messed up and morbid. But it makes the movie interesting if that's the case. It eventually wasn't, but it's like, oh damn.
that's what my friends were like to if that's how he died, that was just such a disrespect to him. But I mean,
Oh yeah, absolutely.
thankfully he doesn't. Thank God.
Yeah,
We were all like,
yeah.
ah.
Especially in comparison to how he actually died in the extended universe. Before that was retconned.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Of course.
he goes out like a beast.
As Chewie would.
Yeah, he
Yeah.
literally dies saving a bunch of refugees of this doomed planet that this enemy like empire. It's not the empire. It's like like a rival enemy alien like force from another galaxy like invades their galaxy and like causes this moon to collide with the planet, and they're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get as many people out of there. And Ben Solo has the choice of either trying to save Chewbacca or save all the refugees, including himself and his father. So he had to leave Chewie, and Chewie died, and his father hated him for that.
Oh.
It's like,
I
damn,
thought it was Chewie was
that's a
like, told him to go ahead, but if that's not
yeah,
what happened, then
yeah, no, that's heartbreaking. Could you imagine if we got that in the sequel trilogy?
I don't even know what I would have just no, that would have been that would have my heart would have just been ripped out. I think
Yeah,
everybody's would have.
that is so hard. That's so heartbreaking.
Oh god.
Although that would have given a good reason as to why Ben switched to the dark side. It's like, oh yeah, my dad hates me because his I let his best friend die.
Okay. Oh boy. I have so many thoughts on that. Let's just not because we would be talking for like 24 straight hours. Okay.
Okay, okay,
So
yeah. Let's talk about something that doesn't have any controversy.
so
So Han shot first.
yeah. Okay, so New Hope, let's get to the movie. Uh the Empire, they are boarding a ship that has Leia on it, who's on a diplomatic mission because she has the plans to defeat the Death Star that she's putting in
Yeah.
R2. And okay, I gotta say, the uniforms, the helmets, how are those gonna help you?
I always thought the helmet design. I mean, they're unique for the
Yeah,
rebellion. I always thought that it was kind of odd because
yeah.
I mean, you don't really have like I guess it's there to protect like so they don't like get shot in like the back of like the head or the neck because if they like look
But they're
in
wearing
like a
just
way like
they're just wearing like
it just looks like
fabric
yeah
clothes.
it just looks like they're wearing like a weird like shovel like that's what it looks like.
I just love
Um,
the not the stormtroopers, but people that are working for the Empire have like a similar helmet that's black. And my dad's like, God, they look like it makes me think of Spaceballs, and I'm like, yes, exactly. They all look like Darth Helmet.
yeah. But yeah, no,
Mhm.
I do actually enjoy like the Imperial engineers, like those like style helmets, because it's a full helmet rather like it's a full like face mask, like it covers like everything rather than like the Imperial like the Rebellion.
Yeah,
It's just like a hood scoop
yeah,
that
yeah,
they're
yeah.
wearing on their head. It's just I feel like there was supposed to be more to it there that I felt like they just had like limited designs for like costumes, so they just took those helmets and
Mm-hmm.
just spray painted them black and just gave them like a face mask and just gave it to the Imperials for those scenes.
Probably.
It just
Yeah.
yeah, it just felt like they were like very low on resources. Like no one will notice this, right?
So I'm just gonna say this now. I prior to actually watching Star Wars, when I was in like I don't know middle school, high school, I my first like knowledge and intro to Star Wars was the Family Guy parody of it. So
Oh my
and
god.
so after what happens, what I noticed is whenever Family Guy made a reference to a movie that I had seen, I'm like, oh, that's funny. But when they made a reference that I didn't get, and then I eventually found out what movie it was, or I watched the movie, all I see is the parody. All I see is the joke. So during New Hope, and we were even one time watching Empire Strikes Back, and I was laughing, and you knew that I was laughing at something related to Star Wars because all I'm seeing is just the joke. Uh,
Yeah, because I have seen those parodies as well. It's like she's laughing at these exact same beats as the parody. It's like, God damn it! It's like seriously.
so yeah, and then I love this. The intro of Darth Vader is just perfect because
Oh yeah,
it's not like it's not supposed to be some. I mean, it's like it's a reveal. He steps out of kind of some smoky, like fumes from
Yeah,
gun lasers
yeah,
or whatnot. It's just simple. It's just right to the point,
yeah.
and it's like, oh, this is the bad guy. Okay,
Yeah, and then
okay.
you see him choking like one of like the head security officers on the ship, and he's like a good foot off the ground when you
Yeah,
when you see his feet are dangling, and you just hear like the bones like in his neck snapping as like Vader just starts squeezing and throws him against the wall. It's like, okay,
is
this is not someone to mess with.
is this? Do you think that's simply because is he using the Force, or is it he's just that strong, or is it probably both?
Both.
Okay.
Uh, Actually, no. I think in that scene, that's just his brute strength and his robotic limbs.
Oh, oh, okay then. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like he like all of his limbs at that
those,
point are fully robotic. So he's
yeah.
just able to just snap a dude in half if he wanted to.
They and this is when our first like we see the first time we meet Leia. Yeah, she's uploading the plans into this R2 unit, and I always seem to forget about this part when the first the opening, we're seeing C3PO and R2D2 just like wandering around like, oh crap, like the Imperialists are boarding. What are we gonna do? And there's just like a whole fight going on, and they do one of those like Scooby Doo crossings of just like crossing the hallway
Yeah,
and nobody noticing.
they have such strong plot armor that is kind of disgusting. they they manage to walk right in the middle of the crossfire between the rebels and the stormtroopers, and not even once are they even aimed at. They're just like, huh, that was weird. All right, keep
Yeah.
shooting.
So I gotta say this, Leia. We've already talked about how she's super badass, but I love. So I know everybody kind of makes fun because her
Oh,
hair,
the Cinnabons.
the Cinnabons,
They're so iconic.
they're so
They
like
really
yeah.
are.
But I gotta say, her hair is out of her face. That's what I appreciate,
Yeah.
and especially I'm my favorite of her costumes is her snowsuit, her snow outfit from Empire Strikes Back because
Oh,
it's
her parka.
yeah, I mean it's all white, it's a
Oh,
vest,
okay.
and it's stylish but practical. And
Yeah.
I have this obsession with I appreciate it so much when costume designers do that for women as opposed to just giving them something that's either revealing or something like or I hate this is my thing about when girls have their hair in their face when they're in a fight scene. I I do see that there could be some kind of feminine power like and it does look cool, but I know for me personally if I know ahead of time that I'm going to be in a situation where I'm going to be moving around a lot, I want my hair out of my face. It's just a weird pet peeve, and so I appreciate when I'm seeing characters who they take this into consideration. So yeah, her hair, as iconic and as ridiculous as it is out of her face, and she's like wearing practical clothing. And so, but she gets caught by the Imperialist and Darth Vader's, and she's like, "I'm on a diplomatic mission." Darth Vader's like, "No, you're a traitor," and she's taken away. But not
Yeah.
before R2 and C3PO escape. Yay with the
Yeah.
plans.
And one thing I want to point out about R2D2 and C3PO is that the respective actors, Kenny Baker, rest in peace, who played
Mm.
R2, and Anthony Daniels, who played C3PO, they hated each other in
They
real life.
did?
Well,
I didn't
Anthony
know.
Daniels has gone on saying that like him and Kenny Baker just never got along.
I didn't know
But
that.
but it is kind of funny because they have such like in my opinion, they have like some of the best chemistry throughout the entire saga of just they argue like a bickered married couple, even though
Yeah.
we only hear the conversation from one of their perspectives. We only hear C3PO talking in like normal English rather than and
Yeah.
R2D2 only talks in like bleeps and boops.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
it's just really funny that they did not like each other in real life, but in the movie, just the chemistry off of them was just like these are like two best friends that have like gone through like thick and thin together. Like they are
Mm-hmm.
inseparable at this point, even if they because they eventually do like separate from each other, only to end up back together. It's like wow, they can't even try to leave each other.
Oh yeah, they crash land on Tatooine, and R2's just like, nope, I'm going this way.
Yeah, it's like, I'm going this way. It's like, no, we should go this way. And they both get captured by Jawas, the exact same Jawas. It's like, all right, well, I guess we're going to get sold into slavery.
He was supposed to talk, R2. And I'm so glad he
What?
didn't. R2, I thought he was supposed to actually have, he was supposed to have
Yeah,
a voice. And I'm so glad he didn't, because it gave his character even more personality. Like,
yeah,
he doesn't
it all.
need to talk. Just him just driving away. Like, it's just
Yeah, because even when he doesn't like speak, like he has like a personality. Like he's like really like snarky and he's stubborn and like he doesn't take shit from 3PO, even though 3PO is like sensible, even though he's a bit of a pessimist.
Yeah. So yeah, and R2 is just going down his own little canyon. He gets captured. Then C3PO. Yeah, and I'm just gonna post this interview on the Facebook page afterwards. But Mark Hamill's the one that points out, saying that one of the reasons about the script that he loves is that if everything's just such on a human level, behaviorally, and even with like, yeah, C3PO, like he sees like the Jawa tractor, and he's like, over here, like he's a robot. He shouldn't
Yeah, it's like, I'm
care.
saved.
Yeah, and it's like it's fate, that they end up on
Yeah.
the Skywalker farm.
It's some could say it was the Force guiding them.
Oh, I mean, probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, no, it was later. I think it was confirmed in the extent, like at some point during the extended universe, which means nothing now since Disney took over. But when the Jawas like line up all the droids to sell them to Uncle Owen and Luke Skywalker, they originally buy 3PO and some other random R2 unit, and as that R2 unit is like driving away to their home, it's like motivator breaks and it just like completely like breaks down. It's like, hey, like, are we being scammed here?
Mm-hmm.
Um, at some point during the extended universe, I believe, we learned that that droid was force sensitive and was actually force sensitive enough to realize that no, like it knew that 3PO and R2 needed to be together to meet uh, Luke to carry on with their mission to bring balance to the Force, and thus it self-destructed itself to make sure that that happened.
Oh my god! See, I actually went back because I always wondered about that. Like, you have yeah, C3PO's going away, and you think this is the end, and R2 does something, and I always thought, like, did he do something to make this one's motor break? And no, it just broke, and I'm like, oh, that's convenient. That's
Yeah,
great, because then they get R2, and um, but oh my god.
yeah. I don't know if that's still part of the canon now because because Disney took over, but that was the idea that was later on revealed, like way later in the extended universe at some
Either
point. I
way,
don't remember specifically where.
that's a nice theory. Like, either
Yeah.
way.
No, that's not a theory. That was actually confirmed at
Yeah,
some point.
no, but I
I just
mean,
don't remember where.
but even if that's still, if even if it's been like recanned because of Disney, like that's still a nice, like,
Yeah.
there's no reason, there's nothing to dispute, or yeah, it's been confirmed, but there's nothing to dispute it. So,
But yeah, so back to Princess Leia. She has been transferred to a prison cell on the Death Star, and they're still trying to like probe her for information to and torture her to get like any information on where the Death Star plans are. And this is where we are introduced to one of my favorite villains in the original trilogy of Grand Moff Tarkin, played by the late great actor Peter Cushings. Um, we were introduced to him in a meeting with a bunch of other like fleet admirals in the Death Star, and Vader eventually like chokes one of them because he's being kind of an asshole.
mm-hmm.
um, but it's just really cool because like even though Tarkin like doesn't really have like that much authority over Vader, Vader still respects his authority into not killing this guy. It's like,
yeah,
this arguing isn't getting anywhere. Vader, release him. It's like, fine, as you wish. It's like,
yeah,
wow, like that's like technically Vader like outranks everyone in that room combined, and yet he still respects Tarkin's authority enough to release him. It's like that just like shows like how much authority and how much respect like Tarkin has over
yeah,
his like peers and superiors. Like even the Emperor respected him to a degree.
yeah. That I always wondered. I've always noticed that, and I thought that's interesting that he, yeah, because I was like either they're equals, but he's definitely not above. He does definitely not outrank Darth Vader. So I always
Oh
thought that
no,
was
like
interesting
Vader is like
that
yeah,
he
because
does
Vader is
release
like
him.
right below the Emperor, and like everyone else is below him.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, like the only other I think like on equal like rankings would be Grand Admiral Thrawn, but he doesn't show up at all in these movies, even though Disney took forever to like reintroduce him into canon. He was like a very fan favorite Imperial officer that got retconned when they took over, and then like reintroduced him like years later in the Star Wars Rebels TV show, which happens like right before the events of Rogue One and New Hope.
Did you hear that they're making a Disney on Disney Plus? They're making a series that's prior to Rogue One, like 5 years before Rogue One.
Yeah, it's Cassian Andor, right?
Yeah, and I know
Yeah,
Diego Luna said he's returning, and I mean that'll be fun.
yeah.
I'm more excited for the Obi-Wan series whenever we finally get that.
Yes, I'm
I'm so
very excited for
excited
that,
for
and
that.
I'm so excited for that, and I'm excited for the last two episodes of Clone Wars because
Shit's
that's
getting real.
it's getting it. Okay, this is okay. Honestly, these episodes are going to be out by the time this comes out, but the next episode is going to we're going to get Order 66. It's gotten to a point where
So
Ahsoka's
going
what
up? Is it going up to when Anakin becomes Darth Vader? Because
it takes place at the exact same time the as Revenge
events.
of the Sith.
Okay, but like, because Revenge of the Sith, that's they were in the Clone Wars. They get sent to, hey, you got to go rescue
The
Palpatine,
chan yeah, yeah,
and
it yeah.
and
So
then
the series takes
they're no longer fighting in the Clone Wars. Like they're done.
yeah, no, like they're fighting until the Clone Wars all the way up until Order 66, but because by that point, like the Clone Wars ends and the Empire begins.
Okay.
So yeah, it's yeah, this Clone Wars the TV series takes place between episode 2 and episode 3, and this is taking place at the exact time as episode 3 all the way up until Order 66 and a little bit after.
Oh boy. Oh my
And
god.
it the next one, Ahsoka Tano is on a ship after they've captured Darth Maul with some of her best friends who happen to be clones on their way to Coruscant after Obi-Wan has been sent to Uptapar to kill General Grievous, and Anakin has been tasked to spy on the Chancellor after he has killed Count Dooku. So shit is going to get real fast.
Oh fuck. Oh dear.
Yeah.
Oh my god. See, that's why when you told me this, I suddenly was like, okay, I gotta hustle, and
Yeah,
I'm not gonna make
oh.
it to the last episode coming out. But I
No,
mean,
I know, and I've already kind of spoiled that like Darth Maul is still alive.
well,
But I mean, you don't know how.
oh, but I mean, apparently, because if you already know that if you watch Solo, which makes no sense.
Oh yeah, that's one thing I didn't like about
You,
Solo. I mean, I'm glad
yeah.
that they reintroduced him to the general audience, but
If you
they
haven't
did
seen
it in
Clone Wars, you're not gonna
yeah
get
they
it. And when
yeah they did it in a way that had people had zero context as to how or why he is alive.
you told me that when Solo came out, you said they did something that if you haven't seen Clone Wars isn't gonna make sense. And then when I watched it, I was like, I gasped, and then I was like, wait, what? And I'm trying to do the math of when all this happened, and then I'm like, wait a minute. And then I text you, and I'm like, what? And you're like, oh yeah, no, he apparently survives being cut in half. And I'm like, okay, yeah, because
Yeah.
that's oh boy. Okay, anyway.
Hey, if Palpatine can survive being thrown down an elevator shaft, exploding, and then having that shaft explode, and then surviving 30 years later, then I'm pretty sure Darth Maul can survive just being cut in half.
So wait, you know what? I don't want to get into it because he did survive. I always thought it was just like it was a different Okay, you know what? Let's just not get into
it. Okay, yeah.
We can't.
So in a desperate attempt to finally get Leia to like reveal the plans, like, hey, we're gonna blow up your home planet if you don't tell us what's up. It's like, you guys are bluffing. It's like, try me.
Oh, this is the scene I have to mention. This is the scene where Leia speaks with an English accent or a British accent, and it never comes back, and it was never there before. It's like she's trying to sound regal, but she's sounding British. It was not there before, and it will never be there again. And I'm like wondering if was this a directorial decision? Was this a personal? Was this a like this was the first scene that they shot, and maybe she tried it out in one of the takes, and then that's just the one they used? I'm always so curious on because it's she's read the script. She knows that that's not the first scene. Like even Mark Hamill, after the trash shoot scene, he even points out that the like one of the scenes after his hair is completely dry, and he's like, "Well, that doesn't make sense. Why would my hair be dry? It should be gross and wet, and you know." So I don't know. I always just thought that was funny because I remember when my sister and I noticed that, we're like, "Wait a minute." She's just it'll slip through your fingers, and I'm like, what?
There were a couple inconsistencies with the movie, but they're so far and few in between that they don't necessarily disrupt the movie. But yeah, it is a little weird, and also a fun little like behind the scenes thing is that a lot of the scenes with Peter Cushing's he was given a full costume, including like these really like cool looking like leather boots that would like completely uniform. But a lot of the scenes where it was just kind of like his upper torso or just like close up like headshots of him, he would just wear like his like normal like loafers and just wear those on set for these scenes. And that was one of the scenes where he says like, oh yeah, I just wore that a lot during that scene. So he's not even wearing his full costume during that scene, except you never see it, so you can never tell.
I've seen pictures in movies like that where the camera is just like above their legs, so they're just wearing completely different shoes than what they were just wearing. Which I always find funny. And at first I remember I'll be like, what? It's like a double take. They're like, oh, well, the camera, you don't see their feet. So it's not an inconsistency.
Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like a funny like behind the scenes like extras. Like, oh yeah, he's not wearing his boots. I'm just picturing Grand Moff Tarkin in that scene, just wearing like normal like loafers, just being super casual as he's like just like it's like, oh yeah, let's commit genocide, boys. Let's blow up this planet.
It's casual Friday.
Casual genocide Friday.
Casual genocide Friday. Oh my god.
Yeah. I mean, for the Empire, it kind of was casual. The amount of like mass like genocides on like multiple like races and planets is a lot more than people think.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, Alderaan's destroyed, and sure, she gives up and says the base is on Dantooine. They destroy the base. They destroy her planet anyway. Only later to find out it was not on Dantooine. Which I'm like, yay! She didn't give it up for no reason. That's good for you.
Yeah, I know, but it was just like also it's like, wait, she didn't realize that they were gonna blow up the planet anyway, but it's like she bet that they believed her enough to not blow it up. It's like she gambled the lives of billions of people.
But like
it's like that is a ballsy move because she had no idea whether or not that they were gonna like because she knew that they would eventually find out. It's like, okay, they know you were lying now, so what's stopping them from blowing up your planet anyway? It's like she was. I mean, I understand she was caught in like a lose-lose situation. She could either watch her like everyone she ever knew die right in front of her, or give up like the one chance that they have of stopping these people.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just like the fact that she chose to not tell them, knowing full well the repercussions. That is a ballsy move.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely, it is.
So back to Tatooine. R2 has run away.
Wait. Sorry, we skipped. Yeah. He gets Luke sees the message or part of the message. The help me, Obi-Wan.
Help me, Obi-Wan.
And this is when he says like, this is the first little indicator like that he kind of has a crush on. Not really a crush on her. She's a good-looking woman, and he not really a lot of that going on in Tatooine.
True.
So did George Lucas, because I was thinking a lot about this during this scene, or especially this next couple of scenes, did George Lucas think ahead, even if he didn't know if there was going to be a sequel? Did he think ahead?
I don't think that the 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 relations of Luke and Leia being siblings
No.
was
I don't mean that.
like, oh,
I mean, so when he goes to like dinner, has dinner with Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru. So Uncle Owen saying like, because he's saying, oh, there's a hologram, it's a message for Obi-Wan Kenobi. Do you know who that is? And he's like, no, but he's dead. He worked with your father and stuff like that. And and then later when he meets Obi-Wan and Obi-Wan says like, oh yeah, your uncle didn't share their same beliefs as your dad. He thought he should stay put. And I'm like, well, because we know now, like, he didn't even. Owen is his stepbrother. His mother remarried after Anakin left, and he never. He barely knew Anakin. Anakin was already a Padawan when they met.
Yeah, but
and I mean, I don't.
We do learn that like during like the Clone Wars, a lot of people did not have like faith in the Jedi because they were leading a war rather than, and for the most part, neglecting their duties of maintaining order in the galaxy. So places like Tatooine, which is pretty much just like run by the Hutt, so like a gangsters, it would make sense for them to not believe in the Jedi and not respect their values or their ideals, since they ultimately abandoned them to try to lead a war.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I wasn't.
So that
I mean,
does make
yeah.
sense.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, because it was making it sound like it was like causing like friction between them, when in reality that it couldn't have. Like they didn't know each other.
Yeah.
But okay, anyway, so yeah, this is shortly after this is when we get Binary Sunset, and this is just such a, the cinematography is gorgeous. The music is amazing. I love this scene so much. This is probably my favorite scene in the movie. You'll find as we do these, there are a lot of movies where my favorite scene is because the music is so good right there.
I absolutely love this scene too. Just the music swells as he's just looking at the sunset, and he's just perched up on like the ledge of his home.
I want a poster of that. I want a picture of that, like, for my house. Like it's
just that frame.
Yes.
It's so iconic, and the music it's so perfect for that scene of just like he wants to, he wants more out of life, and he's thirsty for adventure, and this is just kind of like a very like somber song to kind of to lead you into that, like there's more for him. He just has to be patient.
It's and because so he wants to join the academy. He's a pilot. All of his friends are pilots. Everybody's left, and Uncle Owen's like, no, we need you. Blah blah blah.
Yeah, I just want to point out the academy that he's talking about. That's an Imperial academy. He originally wanted to be an Imperial pilot along with his friends. He just didn't realize that his friends became defectors for the rebellion. I mean, he had no love for the Empire, but he wanted to be a pilot, and he knew that that was the only way to do that. So Luke was originally going to be an Imperial if his uncle allowed him to join early.
Wait, but then when he meets, so I'm getting ahead of myself, but he goes back. C-3PO says that R2 left. They can't go and look for him now. It's too dark, and with all the sand people. So the next morning, they go and find him.
They track him down and find him, and they get attacked by Tusken Raiders who just beat the crap out of Luke. They knock him out and start scavenging his entire speeder. And he gets saved by a screeching hooded figure that R2 seems to recognize as Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Are we supposed to, so is R2 and C-3PO both have been, I mean, their memories had to have been wiped.
Actually, yeah, R2 doesn't recognize him, but their memories have been wiped, and even Obi-Wan doesn't seem to recognize R2 or even 3PO, even though, like...
And I understand, the Clone Wars, he probably hadn't thought too much about all of that. Like, I understand a lot of these details, but I'm even, like, within the next couple of movies, it's kind of it seems like George Lucas didn't. I just only find this. I just find this odd because that's how I would do it. Like I think I always am thinking ahead and how even if it doesn't go anywhere, what is the next step for these characters? What happens next? Is this is a because yeah, a performance, even if it wasn't directly stated, if like George Lucas has said to Alec Guinness, who yeah, Alec Guinness, the incredible Alec Guinness is Obi-Wan Kenobi, he if he said to him like, "Oh, yeah, you know this droid. You're pretty familiar with this droid." Like that would have changed his performance a little bit.
A little bit,
I
yeah.
mean, or that would have been a fun fact at least.
Yeah, I absolutely love Alec Guinness as Obi-Wan. He's one of my favorite actors in this entire trilogy. He just does it in such a way that like he's been he's a war veteran, and
Mm-hmm.
he portrays himself and carries himself as that, and he's very like comfortable in like dangerous situations because
I mean,
later
he's a
on
Jedi.
it's
That's
like
all he knows. That's all he knows.
yeah,
But he,
yeah. His like he like they like come across like they're like here, let me take you home, and he gives him Luke his father's lightsabers. Like, hey, it's like wait, my dad wasn't a Jedi. He didn't fight in the Clone Wars. He was a pilot that ran spice. Which, by the way, that has like some weird implications because spice is like are used to make drugs. Like,
see,
is like our narcotic. Our
in
narcotic.
Rise of Skywalker, when Poe says that he was a spice runner, and I'm like, what's this? I had no idea. I'm like, what's a spice runner? What? How am I supposed to know what that is? And people are like, oh, it's like a drug. It's like a drug mule kind of thing. And I'm like, okay. There was never any. I was like, why would I know what that is? But also, sorry, really quick, right here, or he when he says my dad's not a Jedi, he wasn't a Jedi. How common a word is Jedi? Is it just the Force that not everybody is aware of?
Well, I mean, Jedi was like a very common thing,
Okay,
especially like during the Clone Wars. But since like Order 66 and the Purge, like he kind of put everyone's like by that point the public kind of just didn't trust the Jedi anymore in terms of like doing their jobs of like maintaining order in the galaxy because they managed to allow all of this bad shit to happen, and then Palpatine twisted the events of Mace Windu and the
mm-hmm.
other Jedi arresting him as an assassination attempt. He made it seem like the Jedi were using the war as a means to take power. He basically blamed the entire war on the Jedi and thus turned the entire public against the Jedi,
That's
making their
yeah. Uh,
ultimate purge a lot easier. So it makes sense for not that many people to be as familiar with Jedi or even really know about the Force, because even
I
during the Republic,
yeah.
uh, uh, most of like the entire information that the Jedi had in their library, that was not common knowledge. Like they didn't share a lot of their knowledge with the public. It's just like as soon as they had that knowledge, it was kept in like their holocrons and in their vaults and was only accessible to Jedi or friends of the Jedi. It was very
Yeah.
much a need to know basis that they did not feel like the public needed to know. People didn't even know the difference between Jedi or Sith. So whenever a rogue Jedi would go around, like, "Hey, one of your Jedi friends just killed my buddies," like that wasn't a Jedi, that was a Sith. I don't know what that is. He had a glowing stick just like yours, so you're all bad in my book.
It just was because when he said a Jedi, and the thing is that it was just these tiny details that I was starting to realize. I was questioning George Lucas as a writer because I mean, as an audience, Jedi is not a word. We don't nobody does. I mean, is it? I don't think anyone had ever really heard of what a Jedi was until Star Wars. And so there were a lot. I was like, and I was wondering. I was like, I never really thought. I think I had thought about this like a little bit, and but I didn't really analyze it to that to what I am now. But when he says like, your father was a Jedi and knew the ways of the Force, and I'm like, wouldn't he be more like what? A jet? What? No, he
Yeah,
wasn't a
what
jet.
is
Yeah,
that?
or not? Yeah, questioning or. And I'm like, oh, was it a Jedi? Like he just didn't seem to I didn't know how common of a word Jedi was. And then but then he said, what's the Force? I'm like, okay, that I believe. What's the Force? That makes more sense.
Yeah,
As well as the thing about the Force, I will say because in the prequels they try to rationalize it that no, not everyone is force sensitive to the Force or has the abilities of using the Force. which I appreciated, even though it was kind of stupid. But I appreciated it because
Yeah.
it does kind of come off like, so what? Anyone can use the Force, like it, and
I mean,
they
not
can't
yes and no. Yes and no.
because they can't
Okay.
technically.
Yeah. No. In the original trilogy, they made it seem like it was more of a belief and a feeling that one had to be more attuned or have some kind of like natural connection to.
And I was wondering
Um.
with that's, and I was thinking that, and if that's the case, wouldn't it have been like, I was kind of thinking, wouldn't it have been interesting if there was like a scene, like in Harry Potter, for example, his entire life, he, something's off, things disappear, or things, there's like a scene in the book where he, prior to the zoo, it's like mentioned, like it happened in the past, where he's being like bullied and then he somehow ends up on the roof of his school and he has no idea, or his aunt gave him a horrible haircut and then the next morning it all grew back. Like it's just these things that, all these little indicators that make sense. Oh, he has the gift of magic. So I was kind of curious,
yeah.
like, wouldn't that have made sense if he had like these little indicators of he's sensitive to the Force? But then again, what would those indicators be? Like for Leia, it makes a ton of sense why she would never, even after she knew she was sensitive to the Force, it made sense why she would have never had a need for it, because she was trained, like she knew how to fight. Luke, on the other hand, doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah, Luke had no prior like military or combat experience. The only thing that he was like very like adept at was piloting, which later on he kind of figured out that he was only good at that because he was attuned to the Force. So he was able to like predict like when like an obstacle would be, so he would be able to maneuver around that faster than a pilot would who didn't have
Mm-hmm.
like attunement to the Force, which kind of made him a little bit more of a natural in terms of focusing that energy that made him easier to train for Obi-Wan and eventually Yoda. Um,
Right.
but moving on, they he tells them all about the Force and is like, yeah, like this is something that you would actually be really good at, and I'd be willing to train you. But it's like, no, I have to get back. She's like, no, you probably shouldn't do that. Like if the Empire are looking for these droids, then like it's probably not going to be safe. And they come across the Jawas that sold R2 and 3PO, and they're all dead. And Luke checks on Uncle Owen and Aunt Peru, and they're
And
dead.
it's not even just their
Yeah,
bodies, it's just their charred skeletons. It's just like,
yeah,
what?
they're the only ones in the entire movies that have ever been disintegrated, which makes the popular fan theory is that Boba Fett killed them because in Empire Strikes Back, when Darth Vader is talking to all the bounty hunters on his ship, and he's like, "I want them alive," and he directly points at Boba Fett, no disintegrations, like he's scolding a
Oh
child
god.
because he has apparently done
Oh
this before.
man.
So,
Yeah.
so there's a popular theory that since we see Boba Fett later on in the movie is on Tatooine at the same time as all these events are happening, that Boba Fett was hired by the Empire to help them track down these droids, and did this disintegration job for them.
But I guess so before this, when you had said that he was going to join the an Imperial Academy, he says to
Yeah,
Obi-Wan, "It's not that I like the Empire, I hate it." So I'm confused. Why, if he hates it, is it he's going to join just to become a pilot and then
yeah.
defect?
He basically he just wants to be a pilot. He wants to fly. He basically kind of like the same thing as like Solo and
Yeah.
like the Solo story of just like, oh, I just want to fly and just like be free, because it at this point he has absolutely nothing going for him. All of his friends have gone. He later learns that a lot of his friends defected, but he wants to be involved, and later on he does learn about the rebellion and he wants to be a part of that. But
Because he just says he hates the
it
Empire. He doesn't really. Yeah, he's kind of a little. I mean, in the beginning, it makes sense where he's a little naive, but he says he doesn't like. He's like, it's not that I don't like the Empire. I hate the Empire. Like, and even when he meets C-3PO and R2, he's like, you guys know about the rebellion? You know about the Empire? You know about the rebellion? Like, he does. I mean, he knows enough of like, oh, this is what is happening. Obviously, he doesn't know the
Yeah.
details that he's about to.
The full
Yeah,
extent of
but
everything.
so
Um,
when he says, and Obi-Wan says, "You got to come with me to Alderaan." He says, "No, I can't." We cut to a scene of, because I think this is around the time when they blow up Alderaan, but they General Tarkin, they say like, let's go. They say like, let's set course for Alderaan. We then cut back to a scene of this is Obi-Wan and Luke and R2 and C3PO. They're all like in like, like the massacre of Jawas. And I always was wondering, I'm like, I'm assuming he's Luke is giving him a ride. He said, I can give you a ride as far as
Mos Eisley.
he said I can give you a ride, but he just isn't going to be going with him. So I'm assuming they were on their way and they saw this and stopped and got
Yeah,
out.
they did. But
It just kind of bothered me that it just kind of was in the middle of it. It's like, why didn't it seemed it kind of seemed a little bit random. And then I'm like, okay, well, they were probably on their way and
yeah,
stopped.
they did.
I had enough information to put together that they were on their way somewhere else, but I just didn't like that it cuts to them in the middle of like all these Jawas. Like, what happened here? When I don't know if they had been driving by, or even if Obi-Wan had like he sensed a planet blowing up. Like, if he had sensed
Yeah.
like there was something going on nearby, like anything. Like, that's my own. I mean, I know there was enough information. I wasn't confused. I was just like, I thought it was kind of weird that there wasn't a little indicator on why they were there.
Yeah. But I mean, to be fair, he lives on Tatooine where like death and murder is kind of normal, so it would make sense for him to not immediately sense all these Jawas being killed. Because like
I mean,
he lives
yeah,
on a planet
okay.
where like there are desert raiders and gangsters that kill each other all the time. So it would make sense that he just like, I don't sense these specific Jawas being killed not
I
that
mean,
far from me.
yeah. I know that's just it was just it like give us something kind of thing.
Yeah.
But okay.
So
Uh,
yeah, it then cuts to was like, okay, like I want to be, I'll go with you to Alderaan. I want to be trained in the ways of the Jedi. So they go to Mos Eisley, and we are introduced to the best theme, the most iconic theme of dun, 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 dun. It's just like everyone knows this, and we're introduced to Han Solo and Chewbacca, and they're like very cocky and full of themselves to the point where it's like, okay, this is kind of annoying and braggy, but it it
yeah.
works for them. Like they're very full of themselves
That's
because
Han
yeah,
Solo.
like they're very
Yeah.
confident in their abilities because they know that they can do it. Like everything that they say that they can do, they have done it and they can do it. It's like, all right, you're hired.
Yeah. There was a Rolling Stone did a issue of like the top. I think it was top 50 favorite Star Wars characters, and Han Solo was number one. Like,
Nice.
Han Solo was one, Darth Vader was two. I think Leia was five, and Luke was six. But
Okay.
the fact that just Han Solo number one, just no debate. Like, and yeah, this is when we meet Greedo, and apparently, so Han owes Jabba a bunch of money, and he's sending bounty hunters after him, and so there's that whole
Yeah.
controversy. Greedo shot first, Han shot first. I feel like it's irrelevant.
So there are about like 3 different edits of this scene, and for some reason there's a new edit that is Disney Plus exclusive. So originally Han shot first and killed Greedo before he shot, and then the remastered one, or this remastered like special edition, whatever have you, um, Greedo shot first, and Han dipped his head like really fast in an unnatural way so that Greedo missed, and then Han shot. And then in the most recent one in the Disney Plus, right before any of that happens, Greedo yells McClunky. He shoots. Han does the weird head dodge, and then Han shoots him, and it makes no sense.
I've never really, the Disney Plus version. I was like watching closely, and yeah, Greedo
It's
shoots
just
first, and
it's
I feel like I don't really see what the difference makes. It's because it's one self defense and one's. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't really say it's
Yeah.
murder. It's first of all they're on Tatooine. Second, he's about to be taken away. It doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't really change the character. I
Yeah,
feel like
but
it doesn't really. Who cares? I mean, I know
yeah,
people
no,
care,
it's just
but like
kind of funny
I don't really
because
think it's a
the
big deal.
it's just the unnatural like head dodge that Han Solo does. That's the unsettling and the weird part for me is like why would you do that? That does not look
Yeah,
natural or comfortable or even practical in any way. So why don't you just stick with the normal just him shooting first? I don't understand why the need for all the unnecessary edits for that specific scene.
Greedo's dead. He then just basically gives the bartender some money and leaves, and that's it. And and then Jabba is outside of Millennium Falcon, like solo, solo, and this is when he basically says, "Hey, first of all, don't send people after me. If you want to talk to me, you talk to me. And I just got a job. I'll pay you back. I'll pay you a little extra." And he's not intimidated by Jabba,
No,
or if
at
he is,
all.
he hides it
Yeah.
because he doesn't. He says like, "I'll pay you back a little extra," and Jabba's like 20%, and he's like, "No, 50. Don't push it." And he's like,
Yeah.
"Okay, 50." Like,
And then he like walks behind Jabba, steps on his tail and around,
yeah.
and like just it's like, dude, it's.
And Jabba's just like, ah, for a second.
I know, it's just like the fact that he's able to get away with that. Like this is basically like the equivalent of like stepping on like the Godfather's foot to like.
Yeah.
It's just like it's like okay, he's surrounded by like a bunch of like bounty hunters. One of them being Boba Fett and like armed like personal guards that like are there to make sure like nothing happens to him, and yet that power move happens. It's like damn.
And then we're seeing Luke, and Luke's trying to sell his speed. What's it called? Like it's his speedster, his car, his
His
bike or
speeder.
something. Speeder. I don't know why I thought speedster. His speeder.
Speedster.
I don't know what that's from. His speeder, and someone's watching them, and Luke and Obi-Wan arrive at the Millennium Falcon, and Luke's, the famous "what a piece of junk," which why is it? And then they make that same reference in Force Awakens, like, we're not going to go down that. That's a piece of junk. Like, why is it considered a
Yeah.
piece of junk? Because it does seem, if anything, it's proven to be, other than yes, it does break down, or in Empire it's breaking down a lot. But why is it considered a piece of junk?
I mean, it's basically like the Star Wars equivalent of like a semi truck. It's just a giant, big rig truck. Like it doesn't really have like any noticeable special capabilities. It's just the way he's talking about it is like, oh yeah, this thing's like a Ferrari, when in
Yeah.
actuality it's like a really shitty pickup truck.
Yeah.
That's yeah. It's primarily a transport ship that just has like is just a little bit beefed up to be a bit more like combat oriented, and that's it. Um, so
Okay.
yeah, it just it doesn't really look impressive, but it's like all under the hood.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I was just always wondering because I never got the big deal. It's like, I mean, he has a ship, you don't. Like,
True.
they, and I gotta say, the special effects. I feel like if anything, the thing I don't know if this is just the Disney Plus version. I want to recheck because I watched that because then I didn't have to go hunting down for mine, but I want to check out the like Blu-ray edition or DVD version I have because the Disney Plus version, I was noticing a lot of the special effects still seem to hold up. Like it still looks fine. I've seen shittier special effects in more recent movies than how Star Wars looks now. But if anything, I was
Yeah.
noticing these weird cuts, like when Luke first holds the uh, lightsaber and it turns it on. There's just this weird cut. I think his head moved or something, and so it just very obviously looks like they just, it makes it
Well,
obvious.
yeah. Well, yeah. In the scene in the Millennium Falcon when he's like practicing with the training droids,
Yeah, it does the same
um,
thing.
yeah, no, it's the way that it was originally filmed was he was given an actual like tube connected to the lightsaber hilt, like the actual handle.
Yeah.
And they just added in post the like actual like glowing blade later, and then they would have to cut from there and then just impose then reshoot that scene with him without like the lightsaber blade
Mm-hmm.
to make it look like he just deactivated it. And there's just the slightest bit of like him moving between those two shots, and that's what you're seeing.
Yeah. Did you ever see? So Ewan McGregor, he was talking about how, because the lightsabers don't have hilts, so sometimes like, they'll be fighting and it'll just like slide down and like someone, whoever they're fighting will hit them on the knuckles and it would hurt so bad.
Yeah.
Or sometimes you have a really good hit and it would bend the pipe. And so he said there was literally a guy on set whose job was just to constantly move around, had a cart and straighten out lightsabers. Which, what a job!
No, it was really funny. I do remember on in a lot of the prequel movies, at least, the amount of broken and damaged prop lightsabers that they went through, especially in episode 2.
Yeah.
They went through so many lightsabers that they had to have like a full team just repairing a lot of the prop lightsabers. But back to this one, they get away from the Empire chasing them off of Tatooine because some spies like, hey, I'm pretty sure those are the droids you're looking for. So they track them on the ship and they escape. And this is where Obi-Wan feels I feel a disturbance of the Force. And when they exit Lightspeed, it's like, oh, we're in an asteroid field. Like this isn't like, you must have put in the wrong coordinates. I'm telling you, this is where Alderaan's supposed to be, not this asteroid field.
Yeah.
And that's them discovering the Death Star. It's like, hold on, maybe we can camp out at that moon real quick so we can kind of get our bearings. It's like, that's no moon.
It's a
space station. Just that line is so good.
Mm-hmm. So they get pulled in through the tractor beam. And so I thought it was funny. I'm sorry, I'm spacing on what part to talk about first.
When space.
When Darth Vader, when the ship lands and they say like there's no one inside, we think maybe it's like a decoy or whatever. And Darth Vader's like, no, I felt something that I haven't felt not since. And then he just turns away. And I was just like thinking, do you think this guy's just like, good talk? Or sure, just leave in the middle of a sentence. Like,
he just starts the sentence and is like, I haven't felt this presence since, and just walks away. It's like the stormtroopers are like,
okay,
is he coming back?
Like
is he coming back to finish that?
It's like my sister said she wants her final words to be, "It's buried near the."
Oh my god!
And then I would have to be like, no, she's just fucking with you guys, like. And then, So, anyway, and we're seeing stormtroopers, or they're on the Millennium Falcon, they're looking for... no one's there. And I thought it was funny, so Han and Luke poke their heads out, and then Obi-Wan pokes his head out. They're each in a different... They're both, like, right next to each other, but in a different little, like, hiding spot. And then Chewie pops out of... And for a second, I forgot that Chewie was with them, and I'm like... Because I thought Chewie was with... Obi-Wan for a second. I'm like, that's weird. Why wouldn't Luke and Obi-Wan just hide together? And then I realized, wait, Luke and Han and Chewie all hid in the same compartment, and Obi-Wan just got his own. Like,
no, he's with R2 and 3PO.
Okay, but they didn't pop their heads out, so.
Well, yeah, because they can barely move.
Okay, fine.
And also R2 is like 3 feet.
Okay, fair enough. But it just seemed very like the organization. Okay, who's going with who? Like when you're about to get on a roller coaster with more than one person.
I think you're putting a little way too much thought into this.
I am. I definitely am.
This is not what you should be focusing on. Their orientation of their hiding spot.
I want to hide in that one. So they and then their people are like, oh, like we're not hearing any of the stormtroopers. Stormtroopers come out and it's just a bad what did they say? It was like not intercom, that wasn't the word, but transmission between like helmets. And this is when Chewie attacks them, and they're in the control room, and Obi-Wan is basically just says, you guys stay here. I'm going to go deal with the tractor beam. He knows he's not getting off the station.
He senses that this may be like the end of the road for him. But while they're in the control room, they find out that like R2 like taps into like their systems and is like, "Hey, the princess from like my like message, she's here." And like Luke's like, "Oh, we gotta save her," and he has to convince he has to convince Han and Chewie is like, "Hey, like, why don't you guys help?" It's like, "No, the old man told us to stay here. I'm not risking my life to save some spoiled princess." Like, but she's rich. It's like,
I love this scene because
I'm tempted.
it's such a clear, we already have already, their characters are already well established, but it's just such a good, like, a contrast because Luke, so first of all, Luke in the beginning, especially, I mean, he's always wants to do the right thing. He wants to do good. He now has he had the chance to leave his home. He's going to take it and he's going to, whereas Han, only looks out for himself. And he said he didn't want to wait around for Obi-Wan to come back. And then when they find out that the prince is there, he's like, I'm not going. He said to wait here. And then Luke points out to him, like, you just said you wanted to leave. You just said that you don't want to wait around. But Luke in the beginning is definitely trying to be the hero.
Yeah.
But it's not like Poe Dameron who tries way too hard to be like a heroic Han Solo, and it's like, just stop. Just stop. You're just embarrassing yourself. But Luke is trying very hard because he just wants but in his head it's more of, he wants to be the hero, but he's not trying to put himself into a dangerous situation. He's looking at it as, oh, this is the right thing to do. It is a dangerous situation.
He's definitely like the lawful good character, and Han is like the neutral good character, and Chewie's just kind of like along for the ride, kind of following the lead of like Han. It's like, well, if my idiot friend's gonna like put himself in harm's way, I better make sure he doesn't die.
Look how Han is the idiot friend in Chewie's head.
I mean, I'm not wrong in that, right? I feel like that's accurate. Like, he's definitely like the ringleader that like gets them in trouble. Is like, I gotta make sure he doesn't try to like pick a fight in someone he can't fight against. Just like he's just there as like the muscle backup.
Yeah,
he's basically like in like the first movie. I feel like the dynamic between like Han and Chewie is like the same dynamic as Rocket and Groot in the first Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yes! Oh my god!
Yes. He's like he's just there to like fight whoever Han isn't strong enough to actually like fight off.
We are Chewie. So
I am Chewie.
So they have this idea they're gonna put Chewie in handcuffs, and Luke's just like, "I'll just put these on you," and Chewie's just like,
no, Louis is Chewie's cousin.
I blended together Luke and Chewie.
Yeah, Louis. All right, we're losing her. All right, so they disguise themselves as stormtroopers and they take Chewbacca to the detention level and like handcuff him. And it's like, all right, let's hope this works. And they get there and it's like, where are you taking this thing? It's like, oh, there's a cell transfer. It's like, I'm not aware of this. We'll process it here. And that's when shit hits the fan of Chewbacca like breaking out. It's like, and like Luke and Han are like, oh, he broke loose. What do we do? Shoot! And they're just firing wildly at everything, trying to keep up the ruse as much as possible and shooting all the cameras and the remaining stormtroopers that Chewie just didn't just mangle.
And I love this scene because it's so Han or Harrison Ford specifically didn't want to. He didn't have any dialogue. He wanted to improvise the whole thing just so it would come off a little more natural. And he's saying like, weapons malfunction, but we're all into the intercom. We're all fine here. How are you? Like, and they're like, and obviously he can't really keep this jig up. So then Luke has to hurry. He finds Leia, and it's just the first line. Fair enough. She thinks he is a stormtrooper. she's like, "Are you a little short to be a stormtrooper?"
That's like,
and he said,
you're
"What?" And
welcome.
he's like, "What? Oh, the helmet." It's like you forgot.
Oh, the uniform, yeah.
And it's like, "I'm Luke Skywalker. I came here with Obi-Wan Kenobi, or Ben Kenobi." They break out, and I just love this whole scene because they're under attack. Han and Luke are shooting, and Leia is like, "You guys just blocked our only way out." So she grabs the gun, shoots into, well, I mean, she didn't know where she was shooting, but just broke into the wall and shot into the.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, this is like really the only place to go.
Yeah.
Like their tunnel, like it's a hallway that is a dead end. So it's like, well, this is some rescue. It's like time for me to rescue myself because you guys are incapable of doing it.
And they all dive in, and Han's just having to basically kick Chewie in. He's like, "Get in there! I don't care what you smell. Just get in there." And they dive into the trash chute, and they're like, "It's not going to take them long to figure out what happened to us." And that's what I didn't understand. I'm like, how stupid are the stormtroopers? Like, they could literally just walk down the hall, yeah, and they'll see, oh, hey, they're in here. What are they going to be like? What? They disappeared. How? It's like, just walk like 10 feet. You'll figure out. There's a hole in your wall.
There's like a common theory that that I feel like has been like mildly confirmed of the stormtroopers were purposely missing their shots against Luke, Han, like the entire gang, so that way they can escape, because it's later revealed that Vader and Tarkin put a tracking device on the Millennium Falcon and they tracked them all the way to Yavin 4 after they escaped, so they can destroy the entire rebellion with the Death Star.
So that's why, because if they can't get out of there alive, then they can't find the rebellion, the rest of the rebellion.
Yeah, because
because
Leia is like their only major connection to finding where the rebel base is.
She's their only hope,
because they have no idea. I don't get it. So they're stuck in like this trash compactor, and Luke gets dragged down by some unseen like trash monster that has like this like extending eyeball and tentacle. And this has bothered me for like the longest time because we never actually see it.
You see part of
it's never referenced again. And yeah, this is a thing that is, as far as I know, has never fully been explained as to what this thing is, how this thing got there, or anything of that nature. Like, I don't even know what this thing is called other than the garbage monster.
Yeah.
Which I don't even think that's its official name. I don't know if this thing has ever popped up anywhere else in Star Wars in any type of capacity, whether that's games, comics, extended lore. I know nothing about this thing, and that's like one thing. It's like, wait, there's something about Star Wars that they don't explain, and that's like, no, this needs an explanation. This needs a full movie, damn it.
Oh, it needs, yeah, The Adventures of Trash Monster, a Star Wars story.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. There's like, it's not like it's super important to the story, but it's just, what is this thing? What is it? What does it do? Like, I understand what it's doing because it's trying to eat Luke.
So yeah,
but
that's a good point. Yeah, because it never really comes back up again. It's just, it wasn't that necessary. I feel like the only real reason that it's there, I mean, other than to cause more conflict, because now it's like it's like choking and trying to kill Luke, pulls him under, and then he pops out and says like, I don't know, it just disappeared. And it disappeared because it knew it was about to be compacted.
Crushed.
So, yeah, it wasn't that necessary, other than they needed some indicator that even knows what's about to happen next. So, yeah, the trash starts to compact. And I love this scene. I just especially love this scene when Luke finally gets a hold of C-3PO, who forgets that he's holding his
communicator, yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, Master Luke,
will you shut up and listen to me?"
And then they end up getting out, and yeah, Leia is basically just like, "Okay, you know what? If you guys want to survive, follow me." I just like, and yeah, Han keeps calling her worshipfulness. They do not. It's almost rom-commy that they're gonna get fall in love.
Yeah, but yeah, they come across like a group of stormtroopers. They shoot a couple of them, and the stormtroopers like run away. And Han chases them like a madman, screaming at the top of his lungs. It's like, and like Leia's just like, is he okay?
Yeah.
And Chewie like and of course Chewie follows after him. Is like, oh, I don't want my idiot friend to die. And he runs into a robe that's just filled wall to wall with stormtroopers. Shoots a couple of them, runs away, and Chewbacca just sees at the end of the hallway and a bunch of lasers hitting the end of the wall. It's like, oh god, am I too late? And Han runs away. It's like, Chewie,
Yeah.
run!
Like,
It's like the scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark where it's like, Chuck, start the
yeah.
plane! Start the plane, Chuck!
Yeah, exactly.
And just all the natives are following him.
So, Harrison Ford, I was going to bring this up later, but Harrison Ford, was it he went on the record he didn't particularly like, was it he didn't like the playing this character, or he didn't like making the movie, or what was the I can understand why
I don't know.
It's because it seems like it's just been everybody knows it, and it's like if it's simply that he just felt like he wanted his character to die in action, okay. But everyone says this, and I feel like I've never really seen any indication of that being true. Like, I mean, I don't know. I feel like I just keep seeing all these pictures of him, all of them in the original, like smiling and laughing, and I can understand
Yeah.
maybe he preferred Indiana Jones more, but
I feel like he wanted his character to die because I mean later on he said like later on that after Empire Strikes Back when he's frozen in carbonite, he wanted that to be like the death of his
yeah,
character. Like he wanted that to be, you know, that he wanted that to be the end of Solo's story.
that would not have been a good ending for
and
him.
I think
Like,
no, it really wouldn't have. I'm glad that they brought him back. But I think the reason why he wanted his character to die so badly was Star Wars had become such a uh, cultural icon. Like it became such like a huge thing that anyone associated with it wouldn't really necessarily be recognized as anything else. And I felt like he was trying to escape Star Wars so that he could still make movies on his own time and on his own terms without just instantly being recognized as, hey, Han Solo, that guy from Star Wars, rather than like, hey, I'm Harrison Ford and I did all these other movies, not just Star Wars. I felt like he was trying to remove himself from Star Wars so he could avoid being typecast as a Han Solo type
but
character.
and that that's interesting because that's how it starts off. Though that's for a lot of like I remember like after Harry Potter, everyone was saying they are all going to be typecasted forever. Like they are only going to be seen as those characters forever. Like Daniel Radcliffe has 100% shed Harry Potter. Like it's like it's a
Yeah.
process. It's more of, but he wasn't really well known at the time. Like he was I think he like got discovered. It was either by George Lucas or Spielberg. He was a carpenter for Francis Ford Coppola. At least that's what I read, which I think is that's insane.
Wow, I
I
did
think
not know
that's
that.
insane. I'll double check and see if that's true, but like that's insane. Like, uh, that's an interesting. But yeah, but I mean, yes, he's mostly known as Indiana Jones and Han Solo, but he has an insanely successful career that was triggered by Star
Yeah,
Wars. So,
because wasn't his first movie American Graffiti, which was also done by George Lucas?
I don't know. I remember he was in the movie The Conversation, which was I think it was that Coppola. I'm looking it up. I just remember I thought it was really boring. Like I had to watch it for class, and I was not into
Gotcha.
it at all. Oh yeah, that was directed by Coppola. Um,
Okay,
but that came out a couple years before Star Wars. So
gotcha. Okay, I do remember like that being like his like first big break was American Graffiti.
the reason I brought that up was just because I can understand maybe he wants to escape stardom. Like even Chris Evans, right when but when he was being asked to take on a Captain America, he was hesitant because of all the fame he knew he was going to get from it. So I can understand that side of it, but this seems like just so much fun. He's running around a space station shooting bad guys. Like that has to be every like 12-year-old boy's dream. Like, like his inner 12-year-old.
And it definitely does seem like he was having fun with it, especially just like him running down the hallway, just like, just screaming his head off.
Based on how he talks about it, I can see that he preferred Indiana Jones.
Yeah.
But I find it just very, I don't know, like somebody comment or write to us, like explaining, because I've never really seen a ton of evidence that supports that he completely hated everything about. I'm like, you can't convince me of that. I find it hard to believe. Please let us know if you know anything.
I mean, the only logical reasoning I can have behind it is what I said earlier of him just trying to escape being in a typecast role, being associated with Star Wars. That's really the only thing I can think of that makes the most sense.
Yeah, and that does make sense.
So yeah, getting back to the action. So Han and Chewie are separated from Luke and Leia. They're being chased by stormtroopers, and they come across they basically get stuck in an area where it's like, oh no, we just destroyed the bridge controls trying to lock this door so the stormtroopers can't get us. So they have to use a grappling hook to cross this chasm.
And I gotta say, what I appreciate so much in this is that it was just very awkwardly, like, she's just barely holding on for life. Like, it's more realistic.
Yeah.
Because that's hard. You're swinging and holding on. You're carrying a human. So I always just thought that was funny because it's not very. It looks. Yeah, it's such a swinging across a ravine.
And also between the
like,
two.
The
and also between the two of them, they're also carrying like a fairly bulky like blaster. They're carrying a fairly large gun between the two of them. So it's like, okay, how they have to maneuver that. So I kind of forgot earlier on, before 3PO and R2D2 turn off the trash compactor, the stormtroopers like come into the control room. One of them hits their helmet on the door frame coming into it. Later on, when George Lucas like did his like remaster collection, he included a sound bite of the stormtrooper hitting his helmet and makes an audible like thunk.
I forgot. I always forget about that.
And later on in episode 2, when we see Jango Fett leaving Kamino and entering his ship, you see like the door closing as he's going in and him hitting his head on the door as he comes in. It's like, oh, so it's a genetic thing.
Good.
It's like, oh, that must still be a surviving clone trooper. Man, that stormtrooper must be old.
So they all reconvene. They're trying to get back on the ship, and Obi-Wan
by this point has turned off the tractor beam,
and the stormtroopers just don't even seem to like
notice or care.
Yeah, like they're, and they this is when Darth Vader and Obi-Wan see each other, and I'm really curious. I'm definitely curious about what they're gonna do for the Obi-Wan series, because I'm so curious. Are we supposed to assume, with the information we have right now, we're supposed to assume that they have not seen each other since
Mustafar.
Yeah, exactly. And since I was about to say, since he cut his legs off.
Yeah. The only other, I guess, significant dark side user that, as far as I know, that Obi-Wan has come across is Darth Maul, and even then, it was also kind of weird because the fight between those two, because this takes place like within, I don't know, like a couple of years of each other. The fight between those two is a lot more, fast and dynamic, rather than this movie where they're just like, it's like clang, clang, like it's just a very static fight.
The choreography definitely changes throughout the series, for sure.
Yeah. The fight was just very stagnant, and I feel like part of that is because like the suit is very bulky for the actor who is wearing the suit for Darth Vader, who was that's David Prowse, who was wearing the suit, and then was voiced by Mufasa.
Yes.
And also Alec Guinness, who was fairly old by the time this happened. And also, a fun thing about Alec Guinness is that instead of being paid a commission for the movie, he wanted rights for merchandising.
He did
That
not want to
has
do this movie and didn't
yeah, he
really
did not.
like it. He was nominated for best supporting actor. He didn't win, but he was nominated, and he did not really. He thought his dialogue was ridiculous. I mean, yeah, it's all kind of ridiculous. It's just a completely new territory. But he, didn't want to do this, and George Lucas offered him 3% of the royalties and not having any clue. I mean, he would have gotten a little bit of money,
but him and his family,
they're swimming in money. Like, they're like Duck McScrooge. Or Scrooge McDuck. Scrooge McDuck.
Duck McScrooge. That's his name now forever.
Scrooge McDuck. They're just like swimming in money. Like, I mean, 3% for this, I don't know, billion dollar franchise. That's a lot of money. What a deal.
Yeah, they are beyond well off. And yeah, so Darth Vader and Obi-Wan are fighting, and this kind of distracts all the nearby stormtroopers that are guarding the Millennium Falcon's like, hey, check this out, our boss is fighting. So they go and
like it's high school. A fight's breaking out. Yeah.
Like, fight. So they all go and monitor that fight, and that gives everyone a chance to like run on the Millennium Falcon and take off before Luke's like, Obi-Wan? And Vader kills Obi-Wan, and
no!
Obi-Wan just disappears. Yeah. Obi-Wan just disappears. There's no body. It's just his robes and his lightsaber fell. And Luke just like, no! It just starts shooting everyone.
So Obi-Wan says, like, first of all, so Darth Vader was supposed to be his name, just his first and last name. And, because Obi-Wan or Ben calls him Darth. And he says, if you strike me now, if you kill me now, I will be more powerful than you can imagine. And then, Luke's Ben, and then he dies, but then we're hearing him go, run, Luke, run. And so they get on board, and then he seems a lot more distraught about Obi-Wan dying than his aunt and uncle Luke.
Yeah,
like a lot, and he's only known him for like less than 24 hours. And
it's just been like it's been like probably like what, like 2 days by this point.
I always wonder about because it's he meets him in the morning. His aunt and uncle die. They leave. I think it's still maybe 1 day. Maybe there's not really a timeline, but they escape, and then
they're in space. It's hard to track time in space.
And then this is the TIE fighter scene, and this is a fun little scene, and I like the music in this part.
Yeah.
And
dun 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 dun.
Yeah, and they fight to defeat the TIE fighters, and Leia makes the points to Han, saying that they let us go. That this was he's like, because she thinks how this was easy, and he's like, this wasn't easy. What are you talking about? She's like, there's no way they let us go. They're probably tracking us. And he basically says, like, I'm only in it for the money. I don't really care what happens after this. And she said, like, fine, whatever, leaves. And then it's kind of this is when we get a piece of Luke says to him, like, what do you think of her? And he said, not much. What does he say? Han says, like,
she's not my type, but like,
looks like,
it's like, he more or less just says, like, we wouldn't get along, but I could probably make it happen if I wanted to. And then it's like, no.
But Luke, he says, like, I don't know, not much. And Luke's like, good. And it's kind of an indicator, very clear indicator that Luke likes her. And then Han says, like, what, her and a guy like me? And he's like, no, I don't. Like, do you think, was there ever...
Shuts that down immediately.
Was he trying to set up for a love triangle with them? I keep thinking that because not like in the first one there's more evidence than, and even though yes, that's when Leia kisses Luke in the second one, which she only does it to piss off Han. She's not interested in Luke. But and he, and again, we don't think that he was necessarily planning on there being a sequel at the time, but it seems like it was kind of like it was trying to lightly set it up for there to be a love triangle between the three of them.
Yeah, I feel like he just didn't have it fleshed out in terms
Which I
of
appreciate, because I would have been very
yeah.
rushed if Luke and like hypothetically, like even though we know what happens next, but hypothetically if Luke and Leia just got together. Oh, because the cliche, he saves the day and he gets the princess. Like, that would have been too rushed and underdeveloped and weird, because that's the cliche ending to this kind of story. Anyway, they get to the rebel base, and the plans to the Death Star. You have to go along this whole thing, shoot this laser. It's no bigger than 2 meters, like a womp rat, and the whole station will explode. And Luke's reignited with all of his friends, and
There's Biggs, and then we're introduced to Wedge Antilles and Porkins.
Which one is so? One of the pilots, I think it's in this one. One of the pilots is it Dennis Lawson, who is Ewan McGregor's uncle, and Ewan McGregor goes on to be Obi-Wan.
I think that's Wedge Antilles.
It's like
who is in like all of the original trilogy, and then makes a brief cameo in Rise of Skywalker.
Because I see it, I'm like, oh, it looks. I think it's you. Like, there's a couple that look kind of similar, but they all go out, and I kind of love this scene because so in the beginning they're too small for them to shoot at, the Imperials, and they're all kind of, they're trying to figure out what's the best way, how are we going to get here. But there's a part where somebody comes up to General Tarkin and says, should I prep your escape pod? And he's like, what? No. During our moment of victory? No. But you can kind of see.
You underestimate their chances.
But even he's like, you can see kind of nervous. Like, he looks a little nervous. He's trying to hide it, but I don't think he's doing a good job, because you can see it. And I don't know. It's pretty straightforward. All the pilots just keep dying, and so then it's just up to Luke, and he keeps hearing Ben saying, "Use the Force, use the Force," and he even loses R2 towards the end.
R2 gets shot. His best friend gets shot. Like, his commanding officer gets shot. Like, all of his all the pilots are getting killed, and by the end of this, I think him, Wedge, and one other pilot survive this.
Yeah, and
it's like, and they go in with I want to say 30 pilots or something like that, like a fairly small but sizable force of pilots and bombers, and they three make it out.
And I love this whole one of them, he gets really close to shooting, but it doesn't go in. And then I just love this part because, and then Han shows up and he's like, all right, kid, you're clear. Let's do this and let's home.
Blow this thing and go home. Yeah.
And the music's just perfect right there. And it goes in and the whole station blows up. I know a lot of people think it's really stupid that for Rogue One, the whole, it was done this way on purpose, so that there was a hope and there was a way for them to destroy it. And I'm like, I don't know, I kind of like that idea.
Yeah. And honestly, Rogue One was probably my favorite of the Disney Star Wars movies that's come out.
I actually liked Solo a lot. I can't stress this enough. I went in expecting with the lowest of expectations. I thought it was going to be a piece of shit. Based on everyone's reaction, and I was pleasantly surprised. But I don't know. I don't want to. I like Solo a lot, but Rogue One, I liked Rogue One more the second time I watched it than the first time. I don't know why, but yeah. I don't know. Rogue One, I think I liked the climax and when they're actually finally, because that's when things start to. It sets it up right before the events of A New Hope. So it makes
it literally takes place right before the opening scroll.
It initiates the timeline.
Yeah.
So that's what I thought. That's what I really love about Rogue One. And anyway.
Yeah.
So, because we're right at the end here. So so Luke and Han and
and
Chewie
Chewie.
should have been awarded to
Um,
are.
yeah.
I mean, yeah. Well, I guess
He
Chewie
actually
didn't specifically do anything for. He helped out getting Leia back. He didn't really do
yeah.
anything for
Well,
this particular destroying of the Death Star.
okay, but actually during this award ceremony, it's later revealed, like in the extended universe, that
Mhm.
Wookiees aren't really into like possessions of that. So having a medal for him,
Oh,
so yeah, him receiving a medal really wouldn't have done anything for him because like he really doesn't have any practical use for it. Although later on they do have a private award ceremony where they do give him a medal. So giving
aw,
him a medal at the end of Rise of Skywalker makes no sense because he already got one in a private ceremony that all of his friends were there for.
that's nice.
Yeah.
That's nice.
So yeah, he did receive it. So it's kind of stupid when people's like, "Oh, how come Chewie doesn't get an award?" He does. It's just in a much more private setting. He doesn't care about it though. he
Yeah,
only
he
care.
was.
He,
It's
he
not like he's going like, oh, and Han's like, I don't make the rules. I don't know why you're not getting a medal. Like it doesn't. Yeah, he
yeah
doesn't seem to care.
yeah. He only cares about getting the medal because his friends make such a big deal and such an intimate like ceremony. Like the only people there are Luke, Han, Leia, and the droids. Like those, like I think, and maybe like a couple other like people from like some of the rebel leaders, but like for the most part, it's a very private, personal ceremony, and that's really the only reason why Chewie even like agreed to accept the award.
Yeah, and uh, and that's and so yeah, they're given medals, and that's the end. And I gotta say, it's I think it's just it's weird because we obviously we get a sequel and another. You know, like we get like this whole it just started this whole franchise and it didn't know what it was going to turn into. They thought it was just going to maybe be a well, not even say they thought it was going to be a summer blockbuster. Blockbuster wasn't even a term then. That wasn't even a thing until this movie came out. But
Seriously,
I like think it's just I think it's funny though that because in reality, yeah, they destroyed the Death Star. They didn't really, they just did this one thing that definitely helped the rebellion. It didn't really solve the whole crisis. It didn't end the Empire. It just the Empire obviously still lives. Darth Vader was never defeated. Well, I mean, he's just
yeah,
spinning around into space, I guess.
yeah.
But
Like the Emperor
yeah.
is still around. It was just like this is just like it was a good establishing point of even with such a small and like limited resources of this force, we're able to strike a huge blow against the Empire. We were able to destroy a moon-sized battle station that can destroy planets. They prove that we may not be technologically superior to you, but we can still beat you.
Hmm.
So it was a
Yeah.
good morale victory by destroying a symbol of the Empire like that.
Yeah. It's just interesting because we know they didn't know they were getting a sequel, but like knowing that there is a next to like it just seems weird because it's a interesting standalone like thinking about it in that perspective because it could have very well been just that one movie. Weird. I
Yeah.
can't even. It's hard to picture a world without Star Wars. It's like picturing a world without Disney. Like when you really think about it, even if you're not into Disney, even if you're not into Star Wars,
Yeah,
the
seriously. I
world
mean,
would be different without these without these key points that made these changes. So I actually was looking up because I was thinking about this during the movie. Luke is apparently supposed to be about 19. So Mark Hamill was about 24 when he did this. I was wondering because there's the scene on Tatooine when he's cleaning C3PO and R2. He's like,
yeah.
playing with a little like a little fighter jet thing. And I'm like, how old is he supposed to be? And he's supposed to be like 19. So I guess he's supposed to be 22 in
Oh yeah,
Empire
yeah,
Strikes
yeah.
Back.
Just
And I
yeah.
guess that makes him about 20. Because I guess Return of the Jedi technically takes place about a year after.
I'm a little fuzzy on the timeline because I feel like it. Honestly, the timeline changes like way too much that I can't even remember which one is the current timeline in terms of age. Because I do know that.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Empire. Okay, so Luke and Leia were born in 19
What?
ABY
Oh,
or
whoa. Okay.
BBY. which is before the Battle of Yavin, which is when they destroy the Death Star. So yeah, I think that, and the Empire was destroyed, and I want to say like 5 or 7 ABY. So like 5 or 7 years after the events of the end of this movie is when the Empire was officially defeated.
Okay. Because it's 3 years after, and
So
then I
yeah,
had
like
looked
roughly,
online because I was like, why? I thought I was looking online. This was a while ago because I'm like, yeah, why did they wait 3 years to go get Han? They know where he is. And then I realized, oh no, it's only been about a year. And I'm like, okay, I guess that's better. Makes a little more sense than just like, yeah, I don't know. Well, we got time. He's not going anywhere. So, yeah, I mean, do we even really need to recommend this movie? I feel like everybody's already seen it. And if you haven't seen it,
yeah,
watch it. And if you have seen it, watch it again.
it's this is by far my favorite one. You guys definitely need to see this in any way you can. It's available on Disney Plus. That's probably the best place you can get it. You will be able to hear McClunky for because that's something to experience. Because when I first saw that, I had no idea what that was. So watching that, it's like, what the fuck? I had to rewind that like 2 or 3 times. Like, what the hell was that? Like a weird like audio glitch? It's like, no, he says McClunky right before getting shot. But yeah, definitely recommend this. May the fourth be with you, folks, and
join us for the rest of the month. We're talking All Star Wars.
Yeah, I'm seriously looking forward to it, and also I'm really looking forward to talking a lot more about Clone Wars in the future.
Oh yeah, and also stay tuned because on Disney Plus, so they released a docu series about the making of Mandalorian. So I'm super pumped to check that out. That's good. That looks so cool.
Yeah. And I have heard rumors that at the end of that there is going to be either like a teaser trailer or some regards to Mandalorian season 2. I don't know if that's confirmed yet though, so don't take my word for it.
Season 3, I had read just went into pre-production. I'm like, they are not wasting time.
No, and I'm so excited because Rosario Dawson has been confirmed to be Ahsoka Tano in Mandalorian season 2.
I'm so excited. I'm so pumped. That'd be a nice. Do we know it's supposed to come out maybe in the fall? Maybe I could. That'd be a good like chunk of time for me to force myself to finish Clone Wars.
Yeah, you gotta watch it. I understand that like season 1 is.
I know. I don't.
Some of it is like not the best, but it gets really good.
Yeah. No. I believe you. I'm not like I think I just don't want to. You were telling me there's certain episodes I don't have to watch. Thing is, I don't know the difference. I'd rather just watch it all.
Definitely watch the whole thing to experience it, but I mean, like there are definitely like a few episodes that like don't really go anywhere or feed into any like major plot lines or stories. Mm-hmm. But I mean, still like definitely like watch it all and experience it for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that goes for everyone listening.
So join us next week where we're gonna talk Empire Strikes Back. So we're gonna stick with the Tridge this whole month, and yeah, it's gonna be fun. Yay! Okay.
All right. In the meantime, I'm Kevin Tracy.
I'm Samantha Tomlinson.
And this has been Movie Reel. May the Force be with you.
And also with you.
Okay. Bye.